If God is dead, everything is allowed. Above all, don't lie to yourself. The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point that he cannot distinguish the truth within him or around him, and so loses all respect for himself and for others. And having no respect, he ceases to love. Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. The really great men must, I think, have great sadness on earth. Beauty will save the world. The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for. The best way to keep a prisoner from escaping is to make sure he never knows he's in prison. It is better to be unhappy and know the worst than to be happy in a fool's paradise. But how could you live and have no story to tell? The darker the night, the brighter the stars, the deeper the grief, the closer is God. If you want to overcome the whole world, overcome yourself. If you want to be respected by others, the great thing is to respect yourself. Only by that, only by self-respect will you compel others to respect you. Cleverest of all, in my opinion, is the man who calls himself a fool at least once a month. To think too much is a disease. Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering. Love the animals, love the plants, love everything. If you love everything, you will perceive the divine mystery in things. Once you perceive it, you will begin to comprehend it better every day, and you will come at last to love the whole world with an all-embracing love. To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's. To live without hope is to cease to live. There is only one thing that I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings. If there is no God, then I am God. I say let the world go to hell, but I should always have my tea. Nothing is easier than to denounce the evildoer. Nothing is more difficult than to understand him. Power is given only to those who dare to lower themselves and pick it up. Only one thing matters, one thing, to be able to dare. Taking a new step, uttering a new word is what people fear most. The greatest happiness is to know the source of unhappiness. People speak sometimes about the bestial cruelty of man, but that is terribly unjust and offensive to beasts. No animal could ever be so cruel as a man, so artfully, so artistically cruel. For broad understanding and deep feeling, you need pain and suffering. What is hell? I maintain that it is the suffering of being unable to love. If everything on earth were rational, nothing would happen. Your worst sin is that you have destroyed and betrayed yourself for nothing. Man has it all in his hands, and it all slips through his fingers from sheer cowardice. Reason is the slave of passion. Destroy my desires, eradicate my ideals, show me something better, and I will follow you. We sometimes encounter people, even perfect strangers, who begin to interest us at first sight, somehow suddenly, all at once, before a word has been spoken. The man who has a conscience suffers whilst acknowledging his sin. That is his punishment. The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. You will burn and you will burn out, you will be healed and come back again. Here's a commandment for you: seek happiness and sorrow. Work tirelessly. When reason fails, the devil helps. Times of crisis, of disruption, or constructive change are not only predictable, but desirable. They mean growth. Taking a new step, uttering a new word, is what people fear most. Lying to ourselves is more deeply ingrained than lying to others. When he has lost all hope, all object in life, man becomes a monster in his misery. A society should be judged not by how it treats its outstanding citizens, but by how it treats its criminals. I utter what you would not dare think. The Russian soul is a dark place. The soul is healed by being with children. It seems, in fact, as though the second half of a man's life is made up of nothing but the habits he has accumulated during the first half. Love in action is a harsh and dreadful thing compared to love in dreams. To love is to suffer, and there can be no love otherwise. Money has coined liberty. A man who lies to himself and believes his own lies becomes unable to recognize truth, either in himself or in anyone else, and he ends up losing respect for himself and for others. The awful thing is that beauty is mysterious as well as terrible. God and the devil are fighting there, and the battlefield is the heart of man. It takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently. A new philosophy, a new way of life is not given for nothing. It has to be paid dearly for and only acquired with much patience and great effort. I think the devil doesn't exist, but man has created him. He has created him in his own image and likeness. I will not and cannot believe that evil is the normal condition of mankind. Anyone who can appease a man's conscience can take his freedom away from him. If you wish to glimpse inside a human soul and get to know a man, don't bother analyzing his ways of being silent, of talking, of weeping, of seeing how much he is moved by noble ideas. You will get better results if you just watch him laugh. If he laughs well, he's a good man. Man grows used to everything, the scoundrel. Man is a mystery. It needs to be unraveled, and if you spend your whole life unraveling it, don't say that you've wasted time. I am studying that mystery because I want to be a human being. We are citizens of eternity. If he has a conscience, he will suffer for his mistake. That will be his punishment, as well as the prison. It's the great mystery of human life that old grief passes gradually into quiet, tender joy. If he's alive, he has everything in his power. Whose fault is it? He doesn't understand that. I am a fool with a heart but no brains, and you're a fool with brains but no heart, and we're both unhappy and we both suffer. If one wanted to crush and destroy a man entirely, to mete out to him the most terrible punishment, all one would have to do would be to make him do work that was completely and utterly devoid of usefulness and meaning. Learning to love is hard, and we pay dearly for it. It takes hard work and a long apprenticeship, for it is not just for a moment that we must learn to love, but forever. He who masters the gray every day is a hero. Obedience, fasting, and prayer are laughed at, yet only through them lies the way to real true freedom. I cut off my superfluous and unnecessary desires. I subdue my proud and wanton will and chastise it with obedience, and with God's help, I attain freedom of spirit and with it spiritual joy. There is immeasurably more left inside than what comes out in words. Your thought, even a bad one, while it is with you, is always more profound, but in words it is more ridiculous and dishonorable. Nature does not ask your permission. She has nothing to do with your wishes. And whether you like her laws or dislike them, you are bound to accept her as she is and consequently all her conclusions. The fear of appearances is the first symptom of impotence. To love someone means to see them as God intended them. Inventors and geniuses have almost always been looked on as no better than fools at the beginning of their career, and very frequently at the end of it also. But men love abstract reasoning and neat systematization so much that they think nothing of distorting the truth, closing their eyes and ears to contrary evidence to preserve their logical constructions. Compassion is the chief law of human existence. And what's strange, what would be marvelous, is not that God should really exist. The marvel is that such an idea, the idea of the necessity of God, could enter the head of such a savage, vicious beast as man. Man, do not pride yourself on your superiority to the animals, for they are without sin, while you, with all your greatness, defile the earth wherever you appear and leave an ignoble trail behind you. And that is true, alas, for almost every one of us. Love is such a priceless treasure that you can buy the whole world with it and redeem not only your own but other people's sins. Go and do not be afraid. Nothing in this world is harder than speaking the truth, nothing easier than flattery. Lack of originality everywhere, all over the world, from time immemorial, has always been considered the foremost quality and the recommendation of the active, efficient, and practical man. May you be forever blessed for that moment of bliss and happiness which you gave to another lonely and grateful heart. Isn't such a moment sufficient for the whole of one's life? I know that you don't believe it, but indeed, life will bring you through. You will live it down in time. What you need now is fresh air. Fresh air. Fresh air. Sarcasm, the last refuge of modest and chaste-souled people when the privacy of their soul is coarsely and intrusively invaded. The death of a child is the greatest reason to doubt the existence of God. I want to talk about everything with at least one person as I talk about things with myself. Everything passes, only truth remains. There is only one way to salvation, and that is to make yourself responsible for all men's sins. As soon as you make yourself responsible in all sincerity for everything and for everyone, you will see at once that this is really so, and that you are in fact to blame for everyone and for all things. Everything seems stupid when it fails. The more stupid one is, the closer one is to reality. The more stupid one is, the clearer one is. Stupidity is brief and artless, while intelligence squirms and hides itself. Intelligence is unprincipled, but stupidity is honest and straightforward. Be the sun and all will see you. The more I love humanity in general, the less I love man in particular. Only the heart knows how to find what is precious. A hundred suspicions don't make a proof. I gave up caring about anything and all the problems disappeared. Right or wrong, it's very pleasant to break something from time to time. Love the animals. God has given them the rudiments of thought and joy untroubled. Don't trouble it, don't harass them, don't deprive them of their happiness, don't work against God's intent. Happiness does not lie in happiness, but in the achievement of it. Civilization has made man, if not always more bloodthirsty, at least more viciously, more horribly bloodthirsty. Interpreting freedom as the multiplication and rapid satisfaction of desires, men distort their own nature, for many senseless and foolish desires and habits and ridiculous fancies are fostered in them. The more incompetent one feels, the more eager he is to fight. What man wants is simply independent choice, whatever that independence may cost and wherever it may lead. Life had stepped into the place of theory. Don't be overwise. Fling yourself straight into life without deliberation. Don't be afraid. The flood will bear you to the bank and set you safe on your feet again. There is no subject so old that something new cannot be said about it. Never mind a little dirt if the goal is splendid. Faith does not, in the realist, spring from the miracle, but the miracle from faith. If the realist once believes, then he is bound by his very realism to admit the miraculous also. Being at a loss to resolve these questions, I am resolved to leave them without any resolution. We sometimes choose absolute nonsense because in our foolishness, we see in that nonsense the easiest means for attaining a supposed advantage. I'm a master of speaking silently. All my life I've spoken silently, and I've lived through entire tragedies in silence. One can't understand everything at once. We can't begin with perfection all at once. In order to reach perfection, one must begin by being ignorant of a great deal. And if we understand things too quickly, perhaps we shan't understand them thoroughly. Totally without hope, one cannot live. To live without hope is to cease to live. Hell is hopelessness. It is no accident that above the entrance to Dante's hell is the inscription, "Leave behind all hope, you who enter here." And indeed, I will ask on my own account here an idle question: which is better, cheap happiness or exalted sufferings? Well, which is better? Love every leaf, every ray of light, love the animals, love the plants, love each separate thing. Loving all, you will perceive the mystery of God in all. Wealth is the number of things one can do without. Don't be like everyone else, even if you are the only one. You sensed that you should be following a different path, a more ambitious one. You felt that you were destined for other things, but you had no idea how to achieve them, and in your misery, you began to hate everything around you. With love, one can live even without happiness. Neither a person nor a nation can exist without some higher idea. And there is only one higher idea on earth, and it is the idea of the immortality of the human soul. For all other higher ideas of life by which humans might live derive from that idea alone. The man who is happy is fulfilling the purpose of existence. In most cases, people, even wicked people, are far more naive and simple-hearted than one generally assumes. And so are we. I am a sick man, I am a spiteful man, I am an unattractive man, It's difficult to judge beauty, I am not ready yet. Beauty is a riddle. For all is like an ocean, all flows and connects. Touch it in one place and it echoes at the other end of the world. There is a crack in my soul and I can hear it trembling, quivering, stirring deep inside me. Talking nonsense is man's only privilege that distinguishes him from all other organisms. Because I'm a Karamazov. Because when I fall into the abyss, I go straight into it, head down and heels up, and I'm even pleased that I'm falling in just such a humiliating position, and for me, I find it beautiful. Silence is always beautiful, and a silent person is always more beautiful than one who talks. Accept suffering and redeem yourself by it. That's what you must do. Whoever steps on the lowest step will surely step on the highest. If man has one good memory to go by, that may be enough to save him. After all, bluff and real emotion exist so easily side by side. They were renewed by love. The heart of each held infinite sources of life for the heart of the other. A dead man has no age. Man is stupid, phenomenally stupid. For the secret of man's being is not only to live, but to have something to live for. Without a stable conception of the object of life, man would not consent to go on living, and would rather destroy himself than remain on earth, though he had bread in abundance. Right attitudes produce right action. It's not miracles that generate faith, but faith that generates miracles. Words are not deeds. Life is paradise, and we are all in paradise, but we refuse to see it. Everyone is really responsible to all men, and for everything. Even if we are occupied with important things, and even if we attain honor or fall into misfortune, still let us remember how good it once was here, when we were all together united by a good and kind feeling, which made us perhaps better than we are. For a woman, all resurrection, all salvation from whatever perdition lies in love. In fact, it is her only way to it. I believe there is no one deeper, lovelier, more sympathetic, and more perfect than Jesus. Intelligence alone is not nearly enough when it comes to acting wisely. Much unhappiness has come into the world because of bewilderment and things left unsaid. It's in despair that you find the sharpest pleasures, particularly when you are most acutely aware of the hopelessness of your position. For, after all, you do grow up, you do outgrow your ideals, which turn to dust and ashes, which are shattered into fragments. And if you have no other life, you just have to build one up out of these fragments. Man is unhappy because he doesn't know he's happy. If anyone finds out, he'll become happy at once. It is not as a child that I believe and confess Jesus Christ. My Hosanna is born of a furnace of doubt. In every man's memories, there are such things as he will reveal not to everyone, but perhaps only to friends. There are also such as he will reveal not even to friends, but only to himself, and that in secret. Then finally, there are such as a man is afraid to reveal even to himself, and every decent man will have accumulated quite a few things of this sort. Tyranny is a habit which may be developed until at last it becomes a disease. I declare that the noblest nature can become so hardened and bestial that nothing distinguishes it from that of a wild animal. Blood and power intoxicate. They help to develop callousness and debauchery. If someone proved to me that Christ is outside the truth, and that in reality the truth were outside of Christ, then I should prefer to remain with Christ rather than with the truth. If I had had the power to prevent my own birth, I should certainly never have consented to accept existence under such ridiculous conditions. Life is what matters, life alone, the continuous, eternal process of discovering life, and not the discovery itself. It is not the brains that matter most, but that which guides them, the character, the heart, generous qualities, progressive ideas. They tease me now, telling me it was only a dream. But does it matter whether it was a dream or reality if the dream made known to me the truth? There is no sin, and there can be no sin on all the earth which the Lord will not forgive to the truly repentant. Man cannot commit a sin so great as to exhaust the infinite love of God. Can there be a sin which could exceed the love of God? Since man cannot live without miracles, he will provide himself with miracles of his own making. He will believe in witchcraft and sorcery, even though he may otherwise be a heretic, an atheist, and a rebel. Everything will come in due course if you have the gumption to wait for it. It is man's unique privilege among all other organisms. By pursuing falsehood, you will arrive at the truth. To live longer than 40 years is bad manners, is vulgar, immoral. Who does live beyond 40? Answer that sincerely and honestly, I will tell you who do. Fools and worthless fellows, I. Existence alone had never been enough for him. He had always wanted more. Perhaps it was only from the force of his desires that he had regarded himself as a man to whom more was permitted than to others. A true friend of mankind, whose heart has but once quivered in compassion over the sufferings of the people, will understand and forgive all the impassable alluvial filth in which they are submerged, and will be able to discover the diamonds in the filth. Now I'm living out my life in a corner, trying to console myself with the stupid, useless excuse that an intelligent man cannot turn himself into anything, that only a fool can make anything he wants out of himself. Every ant knows the formula of its ant hill. Every bee knows the formula of its beehive. They know it in their own way, not in our way. Only humankind does not know its own formula. There are things which a man is afraid to tell even to himself, and every decent man has a number of such things stored away in his mind. As for me, this is my story. I worked and was tortured. You know what it means to compose? No, thank God, you do not. I believe you have never written to order by the yard and have never experienced that hellish torture. We don't understand that life is heaven, for we have only to understand that, and it will at once be fulfilled in all its beauty. We shall embrace each other and weep. Through error you come to the truth. I am a man because I err. You never reach any truth without making 14 mistakes, and very likely 114. Do you believe in a future everlasting life? No. Not in a future everlasting, but in an everlasting life here. There are moments, you reach moments, and time comes to a sudden stop and it will become eternal. In short, one may say anything about the history of the world, anything that might enter the most disordered imagination. The only thing one can't say is that it's rational. The very word sticks in one's throat. The absurd is only too necessary on earth. The world stands on absurdities. Though these young men unhappily fail to understand that the sacrifice of life is, in many cases, the easiest of all sacrifices, and that to sacrifice, for instance, 5 or 6 years of their seething youth to hard and tedious study, if only to multiply tenfold their powers of serving the truth and the cause they have set before them as their goal, such a sacrifice is utterly beyond the strength of many of them. And do you know, Sonia, that low ceilings and tiny rooms cramp the soul and the mind? He who desires to see the living God face to face should not seek him in the empty firmament of his mind, but in human love. He does not like showing his feelings and would rather do a cruel thing than open his heart freely. To be in love is not the same as loving. You can be in love with a woman and still hate her. But man is a fickle and disreputable creature, and perhaps, like a chess player, is interested in the process of attaining his goal rather than the goal itself. Only to live and live life, whatever it may be. Nothing has ever been more insupportable for a man and a human society than freedom. It is necessary that every man have at least somewhere to go, for there are times when one absolutely must go at least somewhere. There are strange friendships. Two friends almost want to devour each other, and they spend their entire lives living that way, but meanwhile they cannot part. Humanity can live without science, it can live without bread, but it cannot live without beauty. Without beauty, there would be nothing left to do in this life. Here the secret lies. Here lies the entire story. Life is in ourselves and not in the external. God is the pain of the fear of death. The consciousness of life is higher than life. Let us be servants in order to be leaders. But I always liked side paths, little dark back alleys behind the main road. There one finds adventures and surprises and precious metal in the dirt. Men reject their prophets and slay them, but they love their martyrs and honor those they have slain. Love a man, even in his sin, for that love is a likeness of the divine love and is the summit of love on earth. In the end, they will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, "Make us your slaves, but feed us." Look how our young people commit suicide without asking themselves Hamlet's question about what there is beyond, without a sign of such a question, as though all that relates to the soul and to what awaits us beyond the grave had long been erased in their minds and buried under the sands. It was a marvelous night, the sort of night one only experiences when one is young. The sky was so bright and there were so many stars that gazing upward one couldn't help wondering how so many whimsical, wicked people could live under such a sky. In that case, of course, people are not spiteful in silence, but moan. But they are not candid moans, they are malignant moans, and the malignancy is the whole point. The enjoyment of the sufferer finds expression in those moans. If he did not feel enjoyment in them, he would not moan. A cultivated and decent man cannot be vain without setting a fearfully high standard for himself and without despising and almost hating himself at certain moments. I think I could stand anything, any suffering, only to be able to say and to repeat to myself every moment, I exist. In thousands of agonies, I exist. I'm tormented on the rack, but I exist. Though I sit alone in a pillar, I exist. I see the sun, and if I don't see the sun, I know it's there. And there's a whole life in that, in knowing that the sun is there. Man, so long as he remains free, has no more constant and agonizing anxiety than to find as quickly as possible someone to worship. If you can put the question, am I or am I not responsible for my acts, then you are responsible. I am told that the proximity of punishment arouses real repentance in the criminal and sometimes awakens a feeling of genuine remorse in the most hardened heart. I am told this is due to fear. Latterly, he tormented me too. It was all quite natural. Human beings are created in order to torment one another. One cannot love what one does not know. People with new ideas, people with the faintest capacity for saying something new, are extremely few in number, extraordinarily so, in fact. Everyone thinks of himself, and he lives most gaily who knows best how to deceive himself. Remember particularly that you cannot be a judge of anyone, for no one can judge a criminal until he recognizes that he is just such a criminal as the man standing before him, and that he perhaps is more than all men to blame for that crime. Believe to the end, even if all men went astray and you were left the only one faithful, bring your offering even then and praise God in your loneliness. Atheism, it seeks to replace in itself the moral power of religion in order to appease the spiritual thirst of parched humanity and save it, not by Christ, but by force. Until you have become really, in actual fact, as brother to everyone, brotherhood will not come to pass. Hang your merit. I don't seek anyone's approbation. Everywhere in these days, men have, in their mockery, ceased to understand that the true security is to be found in social solidarity rather than in isolated individual effort. We must never forget that human motives are generally far more complicated than we are apt to suppose, and that we can very rarely accurately describe the motives of another. Reality is infinitely diverse, compared with even the subtlest conclusions of abstract thought, and does not allow for clear-cut and sweeping distinctions. Reality resists classification. I do not wish you much happiness. It would bore you. I do not wish you trouble either. But following the people's philosophy, I will simply repeat, live more, and try somehow not to be too bored. This useless wish I am adding on my own.